going here.
Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
All right, guys, welcome to another Note to File Live. It's July 2nd. Man, summer's flying right by.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I had that conversation today in the car dropping off my kid at summer camp, and I was like, it's July already. Like, school starts next month, dude. Sorry.
Yeah, and 4th of July week, a short week. I feel like a lot of sponsors are just not working right now. I don't know. I guess you guys don't deal quite as much with sponsors, but nonetheless, I want to welcome, our guest this week. One of my favorite, like I said in the post before, like really one of my favorite guys in the industry, Dan Schell. Dan, how's it going, man?
Good. You must not know a lot of people in the industry, man. If I'm one of your favorites, but I appreciate that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Brett's kind of a shut-in. I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Not many people know him. So
I mean, I may not be shut in, but I am curmudgeonly, so I mean, you should take, actually, I don't know if you should take that as a compliment or an insult, but
I will start by saying, look what I have here.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Oh, I have a whole bag, man. A whole bag.
That's
butterscotch, baby.
Phenomenal. I am wildly jealous.
Yes.
So, and if anyone's listening, the debate is whether the Snickerdoodle is better or worse than the butterscotch cookie. I'm, team Snickerdoodle myself. I think you guys are both.
You're
wrong.
Guys are
both against me.
Bet you were also team Jacob too, huh?
I don't know what that means.
No.
Is that a Twilight reference?
It was, yeah.
You lost both of us on that, but yeah. I did have a conversation with the lady at the bakery, and I told her that some people prefer Snickerdoodles, and she said, I think those are more of a fall cookie. And I thought, I've never thought of anything as a fall cookie. But
no, there's no such thing as a seasonal cookie.
Yeah.
Cookies are good all the time.
I don't know. I kind of agree. Well, okay, I'm not saying they could be good all the time, but it has like the cinnamon undertones. You know how like the cinnamon, apple pie, pumpkin spice vibe?
Right,
I feel where she's stepping. Like I would eat a Snickerdoodle pretty much any time. I would absolutely always pick a oatmeal butterscotch cookie over a Snickerdoodle, but I would eat a Snickerdoodle anytime of year.
Snickerdoodle is the do-it-all cookie all times of the year. I have a comment. What's up, Ashley? She says I would be Team Jacob. I don't know what that means.
Yes, Ashley.
I'm going to assume that it's insulting somehow, so thanks a lot, Ashley.
I do love the fact that we're going to change the name of this conversation or this whole show to Cookie Chat, right? I mean, that's what it's going to be from now on.
I feel like we should have like a sub episode type.
Yeah.
Well, definitely cookie is going to be in the title no matter what at this point.
Right.
So
you just say cookie enough, it will be in the title.
That's right. That's true. Well, very good. Let's start off like we do with all of our guests. I know. Tell us a bit about what you do and kind of what brought you, into the clinical trial space, especially as someone who's a little bit different. A lot of times we have on, site level or sponsor level or vendor level, and you're kind of in your own category in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Clinical Leader is obviously a website dedicated to ClinOps topics, and those are the folks I interview. I have never worked at a clinical trial site. I've worked for this company, Life Science Connect. You see all these logos behind me. Those are just some of the different websites that we have, and they all focus on different areas. I've been here 25 years, but only focused on clinical ops and clinical leader for the past year and a half. So I always say I'm the new guy, and I've made a heck of a lot of contacts over the past year and a half. And you guys are some of them, and I do get to talk to, some really interesting people. I'm super lucky in that respect, but obviously I can't cover the whole gamut of all the different topics that are out there, so
why not?
I just don't have time. So
not with an attitude like that.
That's right. I got to work. So I'll let my wife know I won't be home tonight. So perfect. Okay. Yeah.
I'll send her a case of Snickerdoodles and it'll be fun. Very good. Well, yeah, we oftentimes, we love to sort of talk about what's going on in the industry, I don't know, I wouldn't say gossip, but, what's being talked about out there. We do a whole segment every week or every other week or soon to be every week, called Sticky Notes that hits on some of these things. And frankly, I think, I'm looking at, your website regularly to sort of find, topics that are out there. You have sort of the interesting position of not being in it, but being sort of around it. So like being able to see from a maybe a little bit broader perspective, like what's going on or trends in the industry, which I think is really fascinating. Like, I just want to kind of, pick your brain. Like, is there stuff you're seeing now or trends you've seen change over the last, several years? I don't know. Give us something, man. Like what?
Yeah, I'd start with the fact that, when you look at that website, I'm not the guy, I am the guy, I'm the face of it. Right. But my colleague, my teammate, is Abby Proch. She's the one creating a lot of that content that's on those articles, and she's reaching out to folks. And so it's really a team effort. But unfortunately, you get to see my face, and I'm the guy that gets to do these types of things. So
shout out Abby.
Yeah, that's my shout out to Abby. I love her. She's great. And but yeah, there are all sorts of things that I follow, just like you do. I was just going to give you a quick little story about something that kind of encompasses all of this, what's new or what's in the industry. Ironically, I met a PI from Erie, Pennsylvania, where I'm from and where I'm located now, at the Magi conference. And I just wrote about this. It just posted like the other day. His name's Dr. David Almeida. And the reason that this is interesting and related to your question is, so he's an ophthalmologist, okay, and he practices the Krakow model, right? The clinical research as a care option, And this guy's super smart. He speaks everywhere. I had never met him until I was at Magi. I was like, what? You're from Erie? This is weird. He's like, yeah, we do 50 trials. We have 50 trials right now, and they're cranking it out. They have 8 CRCs there. So I went and visited his site. Long story. So I went and visited his site, talked to his wife, who's head of patient recruitment as well as marketing and everything, talked to him more, learned about how their site's growing. And what he spoke about at Magi was AI in clinical trials, which, we read about all the time. And what was interesting is he developed this proprietary AI that they use to recruit and enroll patients. And you think I'm talking fast. This guy talks way faster than I do. And I think the people at Magi were just grasping those key areas. And they were like, hey, how do we get a hold of that AI? That sounds fantastic, because he's using this AI to enroll patients in his trials within a week or a few days, and it's basically like a grand sorter. He uses it to go in, and they've got obviously an EHR that's full of patients already. They're doing vision studies, so let's be clear on that,
Right.
And so he's seeing them. Of course, there's no insurance, there's no private pay. Remember, all these patients are coming here for free, so they're getting his care for free. But he has cut back on the amount of time that it takes to do trials and recruitment for these trials by 2 months, saving big money. His wife told me, he goes and speaks at these conferences, clinical trial conferences, as well as other, ophthalmology related conferences. And sponsors are literally like waiting off the stage for him and saying, we want you to, join our trial. He's usually the number one enroller. So this guy's got his shit together, and not just with that AI component too. Like, his wife designed this app that they have been able to give to other referring ophthalmologists, and they can just have it on their phone. And when they think somebody's a fit for one of his trials, she showed me it's as simple as possible. And maybe you've seen these things. Remember, I'm the new guy, and it just zoom, that goes right in. So I just thought that was really interesting, not only from the whole clinical research as a care option, which is one of those trendy things that you're referring to, but also innovation at a site level, and they're developing this app. They're using AI. They're also using AI to help with their CRCs too. So I mean, I don't have all the details, and I do a better job of explaining it in my article that's on Clinical Leader. But I just thought that was a super interesting visit, and right here in my little hometown of Erie. So,
yeah, well, I think it's, I mean, I guess reassuring in a way to know that like AI is at least helping some sites, because I know I've yet to sort of see the windfall of that, but I do think what's interesting is like he's probably the exact right type of site that can do that kind of thing. Right. If he owns it, it's his EHR. There's no, concerns with integrating. You're seeing more of these big IROs, not dissimilar from what I do. Getting access to these people's EHRs is, you might as well, it's not going to happen. Very unlikely to happen. So immediately, a lot of those tools are completely off the board, for some research groups.
Especially when you're dealing with an AMC. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right, yes.
Well, that was my question. So did he actually develop this AI, or is he using a vendor solution?
Proprietary. Yeah, so those people that were raising their hands at Magi, they not only wanted to know more, they wanted to know how they could buy that. And he was like, we're not selling it.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally proprietary. So,
well, what I've, and again, what I found at the site level is like, truly, there's no shortage of tools and resources out there. Right. There's a half a dozen commercially available options that are similar to that. Of course, I don't know the details. It may vary in some way that makes it considerably better. I don't know. There are, even a lot of the modern site level CTMS systems have like a referral button if you want to give it to a referring physician.
Cool. Yeah.
I think most of it just goes down to like sites having the ability to manage that and sort of weave those things together in a way that is less of a problem than it would be otherwise, if that makes sense.
Not everything is created equal either. I mean, I think you mentioned this, like there's an article that came out today, Brad, you mentioned this, where you work with these centralized recruitment companies who are, a lot of them are using AI to screen patient records and dumping out lists of patients. Not all of that's created equal. And so it's interesting. That's why I kind of asked, did he develop a proprietary model that they're using, especially for ophthalmology? Maybe they're looking at different chart things where a standard one wouldn't, which would make it particularly interesting. But I think so many of them are pretty shit. So you're getting leads where it's like, yeah, you're using AI and you're finding someone who has a diagnosis in the chart, but a lot of other factors go into it. So I think it's fascinating that he developed his own. But that's the other thing. We had a conversation about this at a conference at SOS, which was how can sites use AI? And I think this site seems like it's probably in the minority of sites who have the resources, expertise, and know-how to actually develop a proprietary algorithm model, however they're managing that. Most sites, I don't think, have that in-house resource bandwidth to be able to do any of that. Right, exactly.
Yeah, and let me be clear, I'm simplifying this, and also every time we talk about AI, what do you hear? You need to keep a human in the loop, right? And he is well aware of that. He defines it and describes it as a 3-step process. He uses that AI to initially go through the EHR and pick out, okay, I've got this particular study. I need 20 patients for this. And this is the other thing, they dedicate, once they decide they're going to do a study, he's like, okay, this week, all we're doing is that study. And by the end of the week, we'll have 100 patients. We're going to enroll 20 people a day, and because he already has that, list and database. But then the second step is him, the human in the loop. He brings them in, he sees them, and then he cross-references this with what's it called, the reading center, for the images and everything. And so they ghost that also with the AI. So there's a lot of cross-referencing, double-checking, making sure everything's a fit. But in the end, it's all these patients that are going to be able to be enrolled and want to be enrolled, and again, none of them are getting charged for any of those visits, any of that treatment that he's continuing. If they screen fail, he's still going to treat them. He realizes that is part of this Krakow model. Am I saying that right? Krakow? It sounds like a Russian.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
No, and this is where I mean, sort of highlighting, it sounds like in this instance, he's doing he's doing it the right way. You know, the systems are one thing, and like, you know, we've used systems, but then it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And this is LinkedIn user. I think this is Kate Pryor. So shout out Kate. I don't know why it's not showing me your name on here, but yeah, and I think that's undervalued or underrated, underappreciated at the site level, because you've got all these vendors coming out and being like, here's the thing, throw it into your workflow. And you're like, well, I don't, wait a minute, I don't know how. Right. It doesn't make sense. And this kind of addresses, you know, John's question too, or like sites being resistant to using AI and technology. So I think it's easy to get that impression because you hear a bunch of us sites stand up and be like, we hate all these systems, we don't like all this stuff. But it's not that we don't. I want it to work. The problem is we're not, most sites I think are not quite there yet in terms of integrating it in a way that makes your life actually easier and not harder. You know, just like, I don't know. Are we against technology? No. Like, I want to be able to do e-source and not have paper around. But the problem is a lot of the e-source vendors are clunky and it doesn't really fit the way that a visit works. So no, we love and embrace technology, but most of it sucks. Also, I just want to point out that there's another vote for snickerdoodles. So fuck you guys.
Sorry, Helen, but you're wrong.
And no, I should point out too, like when you talk about eSource, he's using Creo. You know, I mean, it's simple. You know, the way that he's describing the whole process. But you're right. This is an anomaly. He is an anomaly. I mean, he's got 8 CRCs that are working behind the scenes. If I talk to them, they may go off about their tech stacks that they have to manage. But I'm guessing in this scenario, it's very unlike traditional sites or a regular site. You know?
Well, it seems like he's invested in the technology, right? He built this thing, he's maintaining it, but he also invested in the people. He has 8 CRCs, he's continuing to invest, and he invested in the process where he's building this all together and having it all work together. So and I think, to Brad, your point, I think what happens is people are like, oh, here's a tech solution, it's going to fix it. And they just throw it at the site to use without addressing the other 2 things, which are not fun, sexy, or provide you anything fun to talk about.
And I do think very likely the best solutions are going to be those that are developed from the inside out and not the outside in.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of every AI vendor that's on this call.
I know. Yeah. Right. Well, I think we've seen instances of that even with some of the, you know, more successful CTMS systems. Those were built at sites to like fix a site problem, and then they were commercialized it later.
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, though, because this is where my background comes in, right? Like I've spent my career at research IT like at research IT companies, right? So like you can create something, but I think building and maintaining a software system provides a level of expertise, knowledge, and investment that I've rarely seen last long. So you can do it up front and you can build this thing that's great and works and is phenomenal. But to maintain regular updates, integration updates, and the more complex systems get, the more complex the integrations and the release cycles go. And so you are having someone who's not a technologist try to build and maintain a software system, which ultimately long-term generally doesn't fare well.
Says the woman that works for who? I forget.
Well, it's a small company. You may have heard of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
No, and look, I don't disagree with that necessarily, but this is why I wonder why we don't see more like direct collaboration in that regard, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I've seen it successful, where you truly have customer advisory boards and you have clients who are directing the development, because I think you oftentimes get technologists who stick their head in the sand and is like, I know the problem, I know the solution, here's something that's going to fix it. And they never talk to an end user. They never continually iterate with end users. So like you can't have one or the other. You need to have that collaboration.
Yeah.
You thirsty, Brad?
No, if anyone's listening out there who works in the space, please send me a new cup, because
I can send you a Life Science Connect cup.
Okay, yes, I will drink out of it. If you want some free press, send me your coffee cup, because Viva's gotten enough. I've got to,
gotta share the love.
I got to keep them in line.
Good luck.
On that note, let me shift it away from Viva, but let's stay on AI for a minute. So one of the things that when you talked to me earlier about getting hit up for different press releases and stories and everything, did you see the new release about Advara's Council for Responsible Use of AI in Clinical Trials?
Yeah, I saw I haven't read on it, but I did see a headline about it.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And, when we talk about companies like Viva, any type of vendor, I traditionally can't interview them because there's a conflict of interest and everything.
Sure.
But in this case, it was Advara is doing it along with Sanofi, Recursion, and Velocity, the site network. So I was able to talk to Gadi Sardoni, the CEO of Advara. Cerrone, yeah, super cool guy. I mean, it was awesome conversation. He explained, the whole reason behind it, which is, so again, the Council for Responsible Use of AI in Clinical Trials. So obviously it focuses on ethics, transparency, and oversight, right? It's at the very beginning. I'm going to talk to the folks from Sanofi and Recursion this coming week. I'll probably be putting out an article about it after that. But I wanted to know a little bit more about it, and it's still at the early stages. Obviously they're thinking about standards, they're thinking about framework, but all within that ethics and transparency mandate. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is interesting. Do you think that there's any, I don't know, if you asked me, and I think even Dan Schell made a recent post about, IRBs and how IRBs are essentially like so now vertically integrated within the space where like they know everything about the sites. They now offer patient recruitment. They offer staffing. They offer advertising. I think there's a case to be made that like there are some getting to be pretty clear potential conflicts of interest for what is supposed to be a company whose main focus is ensuring ethical oversight of clinical trials, and they're in a position to benefit from actually being, pretty unethical, possibly. So I like the concepts. I don't know if I love like them driving that boat. I wonder if that'll like hurt in any way, because this is not that opinion is not something that a few people hold. I've heard it throughout the years of the concerns, about these IRBs are now becoming these. I mean, feels like they're barely an IRB anymore.
Yeah, it's the same as CROs, right? I mean, we're using the same analogy there. Everybody's buying site networks, everybody's buying and developing their own tech stack, and you have to use this and that for sure. Like one of my questions to him was, okay, so you've got two sponsors, a biotech and a big pharma. Are you going to have more people involved in this? And he said, absolutely. I mean, there's even going to be tech vendors in that, which I said, good luck with that, because everybody is going to be, signing up. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that. So I don't know even where to look at this as far as its continuum, its origin. I mean, that's where we're at, the very beginning stages, and whether or not this is going to be an Advara thing or a industry-wide thing, I'm not sure. But it is interesting that someone is at least addressing that whole, are we going into this protocol? Are we going into feasibility? Are we going into data management? However, we're using AI in some type of ethical and transparent way. And then what do those things mean? What does ethics and transparency mean regarding AI? So there's going to be a lot of defining things, I know, with them. And so, I mean, it's, again, very early stages.
I mean, that's sort of what I was thinking about. Like, we're talking about this, but I'm like, what even is it, right? Like, it's AI, which is a massive field, and like, in what way, where in clinical research is it in drug development? Is it protocol execution? Like, it seems like a very, very broad thing. So like, what's actually going to be tackled? It's I have questions about, like, yes, it's all absolutely, we should be looking at it in that lens, but what can they feasibly do with something that's that broad?
Yeah, like I brought up
unnamed. Like, it's a lot of words. It's a lot of words and a lot of like positioning something that, is anyone really going to disagree? Like, no, I don't think there's. I mean, Black Cat's probably not going to start like let's use AI for bad in clinical trials, right? Like,
it's like someone saying we're really focused on patient centricity. Well, no shit, everybody is.
Right. That's exactly right.
Some company out there that's like, we are anti-patient centricity. No,
exactly.
But my point to him was like, is this going to be this type of and maybe I'm dating myself here, the good housekeeping seal of approval. Like, our trial has been approved by the council of XYZ. And then let's face it, there are a lot of different organizations and independent organizations that are out there, like Citi or Transcelerate or it seems like I uncover a different one each day, that there's a group of people that are working on these types of issues. So I like the fact that it's being addressed, but I'm with you in questioning it. And your point, Brad, about people's fears of IRBs becoming these Goliaths of everything. I would think that is still very, very valid in this case.
Yeah, time will tell. And, a question to that end maybe is like, this is, again, I don't know why it doesn't like to show me who these users are.
Yeah.
This is Reyes Abril. So Reyes, thank you for the question. But considering the increasing use of AI in clinical development, how can we reconcile the need for the transparency and traceability with what are still essentially black boxes, these AI algorithms? We have no idea what's going on.
Right.
I don't know. I'm certainly not qualified to answer that question, but I'm guessing that these are the kinds of things that, trade organization discussing AI ethics has to, address, right? This is not going to get better, I think. Even before the sort of, we see things like tokenization in trials in our informed consent forms. We have to talk about those with patients. It's part of the consent. You have to agree to tokenization. What is it?
What is it? Sure. Yeah. It's a
what
weird
does it
word.
mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean? Like, I get it. I have a general idea of what it is, but explaining that to somebody at an 8th grade level, as you're supposed to be able to do in an informed consent form, there's too many black boxes. And even when it's explained to me, I don't know where your records are being pulled from, for how long, for what reasons. So we already suffer from this, I think, to a bigger degree maybe than people recognize, like just prior to the use of a ton of AI.
Sure, it's not like clinical trials is very clear to the general public already, and now we're going to ask them, oh, by the way, we're going to give away your token for the next X money. What does that mean? And then there's that trust factor. Like, our industry already suffers from a trust factor, so. I'm not saying I'm anti-tokenization at all. I think it's a great idea, but it's a hard sell, I would imagine, for you guys, especially with everybody being susceptible of what AI is, these days. So.
Yeah. And again, it is tough. It makes it tough at the site level because it's not well described to us so that we can then describe it to a patient. And you basically have to say, like, hey, they want to use some of your data for some reason for some period of time. Is that cool? Well, I think many people, it's going to immediately make people skeptical. And again, to your point, people that are already fairly skeptical of the, not just clinical trials, but maybe even the medical
industry
complex as it is, to begin with. So nonetheless, obviously AI is going to be a topic that's going to be hotly debated and talked about, over the next, for the foreseeable future, I would think. Sure. But I want to go backwards a little bit if I can. Is DCT dead?
That's so interesting that you asked that. When we talk about those different types of organizations that me as the newbie, I still don't know every acronym that there is. And it seems like every day I come across a new one. I just got this impact report from Tufts, and it was in conjunction with PACT, P-A-C-T. Do you guys know what PACT is?
No, I don't know PACT.
That makes me feel really good because I didn't know either.
Sure.
And so I should probably have this here. The PACT stands for the Partnership for Advancing Clinical Trials. Consortium started by Tufts in 2023, at the end of 2023. And they basically focus on decentralized trials, remote and virtual approaches to technology. And so they are going to be putting out these different reports about some of the research that they do. And so this report I just got, it had a sample size of 69. So 69 clinical trials that were either completed or in process. And so they had some takeaways from it, and I reached out to Ken Getz at Tufts. He's actually on my board, and I'm working on a story about that too. But it's so funny, like when you talk about DCTs, like it does seem like it has just become, the components are part of just about everything we do.
Right. Yeah.
And so that whole idea of a freestanding DCT that's never going to see a site, that's very rare. Like I'm looking at some of the stats from this recent survey they did, and they said DCT solutions were commonly used to support study visits. So solutions, meaning components, in 88% of the trials that they surveyed. What are some of the other ones? Phase 2 and phase 3 trials using DCT solutions engaged fewer investigative sites than those not using DCT. So I'll let you sit with that one, Brad. Phase 2 and 3 clinical trials using DCT solutions engaged fewer investigative sites than those not using DCT. However, they enrolled more patients per site. So go ahead. Where were you going to go with this DCT conversation? That happens to be top of mind for me right now because I'm still deciphering all of those metrics.
Yeah, no, I just think it was, it seemed to like hit a fever pitch for a while, and then sort of you hear less and less about it. And I know Ken Getz, I don't know what his, he writes a lot about DCT. I don't know why that specifically, considering there's literally a shitload of other things to talk about in the clinical trial space. But I feel like almost everything I've seen him publish is about DCT.
I'll stand up for Ken and say he writes a shitload about other stuff too. Because
he probably does. In fairness, that's probably true. And that's not meant to be demeaning towards him. It just that's what I now essentially associate him with.
Interesting. Yeah.
Just because I feel like, and I don't know if that's him or the people pushing those studies out, because we know there's a very sort of strong marketing arm about DCT on LinkedIn. It feels like maybe that's getting, dwindling a little bit, but I think we've seen like some of these DCT companies are pivoting. I mean, you saw the Science 37 stuff where I feel like, I guess you can still maybe kind of call what they do DCT, but they've really kind of almost like backed off of the term and like, we're a site.
Right.
Not, we are a decentralized trial company. But no, more broadly, I'm just interested in, again, sort of these like rising and falling trends that we're seeing and like what impact they're truly having versus, I feel like I spend my days trying to parse what is just marketing bullshit versus like what is actually going to be good, for the industry. And like most things, the truth is probably in the middle.
It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, same with AI, right? Like it's going to be probably a very similar thing where it's getting a huge push now. And then we'll still incorporate it. Dan, to your point, like DCT was a huge push, but now we still kind of see it. We just don't talk about it as much.
Yeah.
My guess is AI is going to be the same. It's a huge push. We're talking about it a lot. Probably stop talking about it as much, but we'll still be involved in pretty much everything we do in clinical trials.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be, I assume, the same. There would be components that are just there, but it's not the focus. And I think, it's not and I know, Denali, this is something you've said, like, it's not the solution. It's just another tool to help get where you want. You know what I mean? Like, again, every study has an ePro device that technically that's often defined as a decentralized tool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that happened even before, like DCT had a fancy name, but it's just there. It's prevalent. It's ubiquitous. And we like it. We're going to use it. Now, would I jump up and down and say that's DCT? And not really. And, even same with the AI patient identification at some point. You're not going to be like, the focus is the patients, right? Not the AI that got you the patients.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, that whole idea of what is DCT, I thought that was interesting in the research that they sent. There was some graphs and charts about, these are what we consider components, and I had never heard of an EOA, but they're just calling ePros and eCOA, any electronic outcome assessment, an EOA. And so,
because we do need new acronyms. We need more.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm still trying to decipher all these, but EOAs, home visits, apps for data collection, apps for reminders, telehealth or video, local labs or facilities, wearables, websites on online portals, mobile or pop-up locations. Like, these are all things. Now, that last one had 1.5% of people.
Pretty small, I would imagine.
Yeah, but EOAs, electronic outcome assessments, were the biggest solution used, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think if we would have defined that 5 years ago and said how many people are using ePros and lumped that in there, it would still be pretty high. The home visits thing is really where, that's the second one, the second largest DCT component that is part of that survey. So,
yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how the future continues to hold. I mean, I see less home health visit options in the protocols that we see. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right.
It does seem like it dropped off, after the again, sort of the peak during COVID, when like you didn't oftentimes have any option other than to do a home health visit. But we don't ship drug to a patient's house. I don't see any protocols where we're doing that. The local lab thing is much more complex of an issue, I think, when it comes down to it, because you've got to validate any local lab. I mean, I have to send a CAP and a CLIA certificate. I've got to get reference ranges for any lab anyone might go to. That becomes incredibly challenging. Anyways, that's beside the point. But again, I'm just sort of thinking about perspectives you might have on sort of the bigger trends we've seen over the last several years. I just find fascinating. Yeah,
I would say another big trend is something that I know that you're struggling with is site networks, right?
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you, because I hear Dan talking about you kind of morphing into that, and I'm sure a lot of smaller independent site owners like you are mulling over this question, fielding tons of calls. I'm sure every time your phone rings, it's some type of VC or somebody trying to get you to join a site.
Everyone wants to give me money all the time. It's so weird,
Sure. Yeah. And, I thought it was an interesting topic when Dan was recently talking about, should you join a site network or should you become a site network? Mm-hmm. And then what does that entail? Like, you technically already are a site network because you have 3, or how many different locations do you have for your PIs?
Yeah. I mean, we're in 3 states now, and we just added a 4th state, and, there's a lot in Oklahoma, and then a little bit less across Arkansas, Vegas, and now we're adding Delaware into the mix. But I mean, I had this conversation too recently. Like, what even is a site network versus an IRO versus essentially a lot of what these companies are SMOs. Yeah. When you really get down to it, like, we've added different acronyms to them, but we're providing site management to places that don't otherwise have the infrastructure. And I guess you can get crazy with how you define each of these things. Mm-hmm. I don't know the answer. I mean, honestly, I think we need to get, more community physicians involved in research, whether that's through joining a network, starting a network, doing it yourself, working with an SMO. I don't really give a shit. Ultimately, I have no particular dog in the fight. I don't have any intentions to build to sell anything. Just me personally. I know that may not be the norm. But it's interesting to me, and I'm more concerned, I guess, with like what is going to happen more broadly in the industry when there's 3 big site networks kind of, horning in on everything or calling the shots. And these site networks, I'm sure they're full of great people, but you know who owns them? Private equity and banks. And what do they want? They want to make as much money as they can make. and it's okay. Obviously, it's worked really great for our healthcare system that we can see. They're trying to milk every dollar, out of it.
I don't know. I've heard rural health is doing really well right now.
I mean, Oklahoma's going to get boned with all of this, Medicaid stuff too. So like, it makes me nervous, I guess. I mean, I'm going to keep doing what I do, and I think it'll be fine. There's enough need and enough space, green space, kind of for it to continue to grow at a healthy pace. But it gives me pause a little bit.
Sure. There's a lot of things that are giving us pause. AI, the rise of site networks, IRBs becoming too strong, CROs becoming everything. I mean, there's a lot of things to give pause in this industry for sure, and like I promised in my LinkedIn post, we're going to solve all these issues in the next 15 minutes, right? So
no, well, I mean, obviously it's an AI IRB that owns site networks that's going to change the game.
It's going to solve all the problems.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Done.
Yeah.
Well, no one else will have opinions anymore, so everything will be great.
I saw some robots playing soccer yesterday on the internet. So, I mean, that's what we're going to be watching.
Well, I just saw a poster or a, advertisement at a conference that said, robots will be running clinical trials. I don't know what the hell that means, but
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
What was the point?
I don't know. And someone else had texted me about it too. They're like, do you think a robot could run a clinical trial? I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know. Like what does that mean? Like, could they? I mean, I guess maybe you could teach a robot to draw blood. I'm sure that's maybe a thing that exists already. Or
no,
like,
thank you.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, and then it comes down to like, what's the potential adoption of that?
That's how you get patients really to get involved. Be like, we're gonna use AI to find you, and then we're gonna use the robot to treat you.
Yeah,
everything's cool. Don't worry.
Okay, the robot's on their way.
Yeah,
be prepared.
It's like,
yeah, I don't know. Again, it's all fascinating to me. What's I know you hit the conference scene pretty regularly. Where have you been recently?
I don't actually. It's usually the beginning of the season, and then
make me look like a liar.
No, yeah. I mean, you're a big fat liar. No, I don't think anybody's ever called you either one of those things. Maybe big. No. I'll probably in the fall be. I think the next thing I'll go to is SCRS. I even skipped DIA this year. Some of our folks went, but I'm sure you saw some people's responses. Was there anything new that came out of DIA that struck you? Because it seemed to me it was all the same things we've been talking about so far. Yeah,
not that I had heard. Someone had mentioned that it seemed like it was smaller than recent years, or less attended maybe. And it's just.
Budgets, right? People don't have money to travel and attend conferences right now.
Right.
Well, and maybe that's another thing like that you're hearing about. I mean, if you go to, to whatever degree you trust Reddit, I happen to love Reddit, but go and look, and every day or two, I feel like there's another layoff thread from especially the CROs.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Is that a reflection of the state of clinical research, or is it just another one of those cycles that we see every 10 20 years where sponsors are going to take things in-house, or they're going to offshore some of this work? I mean, do you have any kind of perspective on that, or is it something that you've seen as well?
It's interesting. I see those same threads, and I read that every day too. And it's what's also coincidental is we are working with Tufts for the first time ever. Clinical Leader is we've always had a CRO awards that we've put on for like the past number of years. We had our own research firm we owned for many years, did it, ISR, but we don't own them anymore. So I reached out to Ken, and they've agreed to do it. So they're basically rescaling our whole CRO awards, and obviously with our guidance and everything. So that'll be interesting to see how that comes out, because it has to be someone you've worked with within the past 6 months. So it can't just be, and there's no fee. We don't charge people to nominate, firms. So I thought it would be interesting, especially in this environment that we're talking about, this giant layoff environment, to see who comes out. I mean, the big three are going to be out there, right? But I'm more interested in the mid and the small ones, and see what people's perceptions are of those different ways that you can rank a CRO. But no, I mean, I think I'm in the same boat as you and everybody else on Reddit when they see those, I got laid off today and this is just part of a bigger theme, and don't work for this CRO. It's every day, right? I mean, they should really change the name to CRO grumblings or something like that.
Yeah, it's either, I love the subreddit because, there's really nothing else quite like it committed to clinical research, but I feel like it's either, how do I get a job? Or, oh, I just got laid off. Like that's kind of the most of the content there, unfortunately.
Yeah. But no, I don't have any insights on that. I am working on, and this is sort of in the future, a video series on people who have been laid off, what we can do in the industry to help them, whether through mentorship, whether, I want to talk to recruiters. I want to talk to people that have been through it. I already have a co-host that's going to do that with me. Talk to people who are not mentors, but like a business coach, try to help some of the folks that are out there that are going through this, because you read these all the time. A lot of times, I think today you saw the one where the woman said, I've worked in clinical research for 15 years and I just got laid off for the first time and I'm freaking out. That was her headline, And so we're trying to put together like a short little video series about, and have some experts that can kind of help in that respect. And but that's sort of a side project I'm working on.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, it's unfortunate because I think, everyone's already overworked and burnt out, like, and you see it again, see it in Reddit, see it on LinkedIn, you see it everywhere. So it's unfortunate that, it feels like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And you got all these great, talented people, who have been laid off, and, what are we doing? Where did I just say, again, I know, it's a public company's job to make money, essentially, right? That's their number one goal. Don't tell me about Viva. They're a public benefit corporation and they're different. I know.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yes.
Oh, you're in the same boat, right, Brad? I mean, in the end, you have to make money.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
So,
I can afford to be a little bit more irresponsible though, just because there's no board,
right?
Or I'm not gambling with anyone else's money other than my own
yet,
which is a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see. And then when we get down to the last minutes, because I was curious too, like we're seeing a lot, and maybe this kind of applies back to the site network side, but M&A, especially on site network side, but like, I don't know, do you think we're going to continue to have a lot more of this? We saw sort of like, what do we see? Circuit and Lightship. I feel like there was another one recently. Those are kind of on the site side.
Yeah.
Is that I guess in your mind, is that a signal of strength or a signal of desperation? You're starting to see some of these things come to fruition.
Well, when we talk about M&As, you could be talking about CROs, you could be talking about site networks, and in the latter, you're right. We are seeing a lot of that. Like the Joel Whites of the world are going to be the ones that can really talk to you about M&As and the value and what we should be fearing on those respects. But yeah, I think on the site network side of things, it's exactly what we've just got done talking about and all the different elements of it, right? We need more PIs but we also need more CRCs and CRAs. But if you're owned by a PE firm, are they going to be wanting to pay for all of that? And then how does that trickle down to quality in the trials? So I would say, if anything, I'm guessing the M&As are going to continue it from the site level. And tell me if I'm wrong, but then that also brings a lot of fear. And we've talked about fear this whole hour, so.
Well, and I think that's a big piece of it, though, is because you see PE investing in these firms. They expect to see growth in margins. When it doesn't happen and you can't get organic growth, one of the ways you get growth is inorganic growth, and you do M&A, and then all of a sudden your your funnels are bigger and changes, so your outlook looks different. So you can prove that you're doing something, and you can prove that you're opening up your funnel and you're going to be able to make more because look at this new potential based on the M&A. Yes, we had to spend to get it, but that opens up our potential spend. So like, I think a lot of times folks, like, I think Brad, to your point, that might be something where if you're struggling, you look to M&A to sort of pad your potential revenue paths. And if you're in trouble because you've taken down too much and your margins aren't there and you oversold on what your outlook is, that'd be a way to sort of at least delay the inevitable, right? Like you're adding more and like, look, we did this and this is going to change the game. And so you're just sort of kicking the can down the road. But I don't know. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. If you're in that situation, then like, you guys ever watched the show The Bear?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a restaurant and they've come to a point where, they're just flat, and the guy that is the computer, they call him the computer, he's the guy that analyzes all the data and he says, why would you even want to stay in business? She says, we can stay in business. We can keep operating. He says, but if you're like flat, why? Is it then it's just like, I don't know. There's got to be a tipping point. I'm sure Brad goes through this every day of when do I make that decision, and to grow, or to, I don't know what you would call that type of a lifestyle business,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I believe it's an internal dialogue I've had, or I guess monologue.
Yeah.
Many times.
Dialogue.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in there. It's at what point does it make sense to just chill, have I always feel like lifestyle business is kind of like a derogatory way to say it, even though it doesn't have to be, but you can still do a lot of good and do it comfortably and do it well without having to try to take on the world and play with other people's money and get yourself in situations that might not be good for you. But it's a great question. And I think this is probably a question a lot of small site owners have and will continue to have, over the years. And you've probably seen some of the rumblings from site owners who are like, I sold and now it sucks. They ruined it, and I get it. That's your baby too. So like, you're going to be a little bit more, I don't know. You're going to be a little bit more critical, of what someone else decides to do, but that's the trade-off,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. There's a great question at the end. I can't answer it for you, but how does Fortrea overcome their debt load with a decreasing headcount?
Rich, I'm not sure why you think any of us could answer that question, but thank you for asking.
I don't know. I wish I'm going to say this with no knowledge of anything and completely no qualification, but I think Fortrea is probably wasn't Fortrea up for sale? Were they looking for a buyer? I thought I'd seen that at some point. So if not, I just made that up and now it's out there.
Starting the rumor.
Don't hold me responsible, but my understanding, I thought, was that they were shopping. But time will tell.
I have an answer to this question. It is AI robots.
Perfect.
That's all.
Right.
Open an IRB and fill it with AI robots. And
AI robots that are eating butterscotch oatmeal cookies.
Thank you for bringing it. Thank you for bringing
All
it
around.
full circle. You did it. This is why you're a great guest, Dan. All right, guys, we're down to the last 2 minutes. Where can people find you, man?
clinicalleader.com and send me some messages, some ideas for stories. I'm always looking at things. Like I said, Abby Proch is out there always looking for contributed articles. So appreciate all the support.
Abby, if you got any dirt on Dan, reach out to me on LinkedIn. And anything I can blackmail him about, let me know.
Perfect.
And Denali, what do we have next week?
We have a sticky notes next week. So I'll be rambling about some nonsense. Was it blathering on about things we know nothing about? That'll be next week. Same time, same place.
I'm getting pretty good at it. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for listening. Again, Dan, thanks for coming on. Would like to consider getting you back on some sort of regular cadence, sort of hitting up, and maybe we'll slip you in on some sticky notes, as seems to kind of be in your lane in terms of what's going on.
I'm not sure I like the phrase "slip me in" on sticky notes, but yeah, let's do it.
I'll reword that. Don't worry. All right, guys. See you guys next week. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.